because when we get to the canvass, it's a little too late. Right. One of the things we do want to ensure is that if someone is turned away, or if someone is directed to the wrong polling place, particularly where we have multiple precinct polling, that there's evidence.
Sure.
And that evidence is a provisional ballot.
So to just jump in, because that's a perfect place of what I was going to ask. It's sort of a two-part question. One is the inaccuracies just in between a normal election day and a canvass. Is that a result of just improper training on the part of some of the election officials? Is there a deeper problem in there? But then the more specific question about split precincts and districts where we have sort of funny business that went on this past year. Donte's election is one, but the most prolific one was District 28 between Joshua Cole and Dave Yancey, or not Dave Yancey.
We'll call it Josh Cole's race.
Josh Cole. So Josh Cole's race. Yancey was 94. Right, between Josh Cole and his Republican opponent.
And the 28, it could have been just as confusing with Yancey in there too, right, because it was a totally mishandled election.
So, but my question is this: is that we run into these situations where, especially in that case, we had voters that went to their precinct, that they knew they were registered to vote in this precinct, and they were given the ballot for a wrong district because they were in one of these split precincts. In some cases, they weren't even. They were in another precinct. They were given the wrong ballot. And then we also heard about cases where election officials took maps off of the wall because people were contesting it. One of the issues that came up in the legal battle over the 28th was the whole idea of provisional ballots, because you had folks that were contesting the fact they were given the wrong ballot. Some folks argue that in that case, they should have been given a provisional ballot for the district that they believed they lived in, which we know they did. While other people said, well, since they were still given a ballot, even was for the wrong district, that was fair. How would you elaborate?
Exactly. Well, first off, I think the law is now this, and it's based on not only Bush versus Gore, a decision that many of us don't agree with, but we'll have to live with, about equal protection. There is a case that was brought in the Sixth Circuit, which is Ohio, that helps, I think, tell us what should happen. The case is Hunter versus Hamilton Board of Elections, and in that, the court said that disparate treatment is actionable, is a violation of equal protection, and that in particular, that disparate treatment is actionable when it is the misapplication of state law. That is, where state actors have caused the issue. Consider that the state misapplication of law against what Mr. Justice Rehnquist says in Bush versus Gore, that the voters simply didn't follow the instructions to punch out the ballots, their punch cards, fully and completely. Here, the voter has done absolutely nothing wrong but follow the state. Right. In Hunter, the court actually allowed the counting of provisional ballots. Let me back up a little bit from what happened in the 28th and pose a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Assume for a moment that one knows that this is going to be a close election. The first thing that happens months before Election Day is that the candidate, the organization, the Democratic Party, looks at the district, looks at the registered voter list, and determines who's in and who's out. This actually happened in 2001 in the Mark Shields race, where, due to redistricting, there was a part of his district that was not included. He actually lost the race.
Sorry, real quick. So when you say,
I want to,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me just finish that. Let me finish the thought is that
you have the floor, Professor.
It is critical that the party and the candidate do their job. Hypothetically, if that's not done, then we are left with what happens on election day.
Right.
Assume, in my hypothetical, that the party knows early in the morning that there is confusion about where individuals should vote. It is incumbent then, not at the end of election day, then for the party to immediately insist with the officers of elections that provisional ballots be given to everyone so there's a record. If there's any resistance, to go to the state board. If there's resistance, to go to the circuit court.
Sure.
In my hypothetical, if that's not done, we get to the end of election night, and there's really no way to sort it out.
Right.
Go ahead, Gene.
You didn't say this, but this is what you want people to do. What you need on election day, and then before that you need preparation, you need SWAT teams, legal SWAT teams, that can go to each precinct and just make sure that the T is crossed and the I is dotted. And at 7:30 in the morning, if there's a little hiccup, like in Palm Beach or in the 28th district, it was Delegate Bob Thomas.
Thomas, yes.
And David Yancey, Bob Thomas.
Yes.
But what I
Same
think,
difference.
what I think happened with Joshua's case is there were these hiccups, and you brought this up. There were these hiccups, and the map was pulled off the wall. There was confusion, but nobody was there. No SWAT team was there to help resolve the problem, give them a provisional ballot or do something else. What bothers me...
You're exactly right, Gene. You're
Yeah,
exactly
no.
right.
What bothers me a lot about the Josh Cole case is, and I want you to expound on this, we knew what the voter list was before the election, and there were people that were listed in the wrong precinct, and that the registrar was going to give them a ballot from another precinct or another district. Why didn't we catch that? And I'm not complaining about Josh Cole's campaign, but there was data there, and I want you to comment on this. Was there information that we could have looked at the day before that said, "Hey, Ken Boddye, they're going to give him a ballot in the wrong district. I got to be there to make sure that doesn't happen." Could we have done that?
Well, let me go to the hypothetical, because it's easier to
Right.
answer the question in the hypothetical. Absolutely, yes. In 2001, the Democratic Party would have had the SWAT team there. We had, in 2001, the Democratic Party had lawyers in every jurisdiction. We had a lawyer at the state board of elections. We knew how to react. The 5-minute rule is a cardinal principle. That is that you must have a solution within 5 minutes. So there were several things that we could have done. First, as in Palm Beach, we could have had sample ballots so that everyone saw the ballot that they should have been given. Second, the liberal use of provisional ballots, which are provided for in 24.2.653. The provisional ballot rules were there to preserve evidence. I mean, think about this, Gene, as a trial lawyer. It is hard to try a case without evidence. It's very easy to try a case with evidence. And what in my hypothetical didn't happen is the preservation of that evidence. We have a case, Hunter, where they were able to sort out the results of people being put in the wrong precinct because they had the provisional ballots. Once you have voters voting without some record and it goes into the ballot box, you can't recapture it.
Right.
That's whether it's Palm Beach, whether it's the 28th, or my hypothetical. You need that SWAT team. When you hear of a problem, you must address it immediately. Now, no criticism of the Democratic Party. They did have, in fact, a war room I think what has happened is, with no disrespect to that effort, is it has lost its aggressiveness to realize that if you don't solve a voting problem immediately,
Exactly.
then you probably can never solve it. And particularly in parts of Virginia that have large populations, we know that there are 2 voting periods: early morning, evening.
Afterward,
We're work related, and whether that's Fairfax or whether this is Emporia, whether this is the beach or Richmond, we vote around the work day. Maybe one of the solutions is we ought to either have election day as a holiday, or we ought to move to a different or to a different period,
or a different
and
day.
either vote over the weekends, realizing that when we do vote over the weekends, we need to make considerations for all religious Sabbaths. So there has to be a couple of days of voting. It is particularly in my hypothetical extremely distressing that a number of voters in my hypothetical that voted in the wrong precinct exceeds the difference between 2 candidates. And in fact, in my hypothetical, we see that votes are wasted when it appears that candidates that should have received votes lost them when someone voted in a accommodating precinct that was going to elect a candidate of the other party.